Connor Hadley grabbed a 63-year-old black man
Get off that stool, dog!
by the back of his jacket and dragged him off a diner stool. Saturday morning, packed diner. Every fork stopped. Mitchell Owens caught the counter edge, looked Connor dead in the eye.
I've been eating here longer than you've been alive, son.
Connor shoved his face closer.
You talk back to me? My daddy's the chief of police. I say animals eat outside.
He grabbed Mitchell's collar with both hands, dragged him across the tile floor. The child screamed. Plates crashed. 12 people watched. Not one opened their mouth. Connor threw him onto the sidewalk and laughed. What he didn't know, what made him the dumbest man in Virginia that morning, was exactly who he'd just put his hands on. Man, to understand what happened, you gotta know who Mitchell Owens really was. Because nobody in that room had a clue. Ridgemont, Virginia. Population just under 18,000. The kind of town where everybody knows your name, your business, and what you had for dinner last Tuesday. Main Street still had those old red brick storefronts from the 1940s. A barbershop with a spinning pole. A hardware store that smelled like sawdust and motor oil. A post office where the clerk remembered your birthday. 2 years back, the town had voted to take down the Confederate statue in the square. Heated meetings. Grown men screaming at each other. They finally removed it. But the empty stone pedestal was still there. Like the town couldn't decide what it believed in yet. Right in the middle of Main Street sat Brenda's Country Kitchen. Brenda Watkins had owned that diner for 22 years. She was a black woman in her mid-50s with arms built from flipping cast-iron skillets and a voice that could silence a room without raising above a whisper. Checkered curtains in the windows. A brass bell above the door that jingled every time someone walked in. The smell of bacon grease and fresh biscuits hit you before your foot even crossed the threshold. Regulars had their own seats, their own mugs, their own unspoken rules. And nobody had been coming to Brenda's longer than Mitchell Owens. Every Saturday morning at 8:15, that bell jingled and Mitchell walked in. Same routine for 11 years. He hung his canvas jacket on the third hook by the door. His hook. Everybody knew it. Brenda already had his coffee poured before he sat down. Black, no sugar, ceramic mug with a chip on the handle that she refused to throw away. "Morning, Mitch." "Morning, Brenda." That was it. That was all they needed. Mitchell was 63, tall, lean, the kind of lean that came from decades of discipline, not dieting. There was a faded scar running along his left forearm. His hands were rough, but steady. Every time the front door opened, his eyes flicked toward it for half a second. Quick scan, then back to his newspaper. He sat with perfect posture. Not stiff, just straight, like his spine had forgotten how to slouch. He wore no medals, no pins, no hat with a military logo. Nothing that said anything about who he was or what he'd done. To anyone walking in that morning, he was just an old man drinking coffee and reading the news. That was exactly how Mitchell wanted it. Now, on the other side of Ridgemont, there was a name that carried weight. Hadley. Chief Gerald Hadley had run the Ridgemont Police Department for 14 years. He was the kind of man who shook hands at church on Sunday and buried complaints on Monday. His son Connor was 28, technically a deputy in the next county over. But in Ridgemont, Connor moved like he wore his father's badge. Loud, entitled, always looking for someone to remind that the Hadleys ran things. Folks in town talked about Connor the way people talk about a storm they can see coming. You didn't confront it. You just got out of the way. Black residents knew him best. Connor had a habit of showing up where he wasn't needed. Traffic stops that lasted 45 minutes. Noise complaints filed against houses that were dead quiet. Always the same neighborhoods. Always the same faces. And nothing ever came of the complaints. Because every piece of paper with Connor's name on it ended up on his daddy's desk. And Gerald Hadley had a real talent for making paper disappear. That Saturday morning, around 8:30, the bell above Brenda's door jingled again. Connor Hadley walked in with Deputy Kyle Sutter. Kyle was on duty. Full uniform, badge, belt, sidearm. Connor was off duty. Jeans, boots, wraparound sunglasses pushed up on his head. But he walked in like he owned the room. They grabbed a booth near the window. Connor ordered loud enough for the whole place to hear. Kyle laughed at everything he said. Then Connor noticed Mitchell at the counter. His expression shifted, not all at once. It started around the eyes, a squint, then the jaw tightened, then that look, the one that said someone in this room didn't belong. Brenda saw it. Her hand tightened around the coffee pot handle. The regulars saw it too. A few of them suddenly got very interested in their eggs. The air in that diner changed. You could feel it. Like the temperature dropped 3 degrees in 2 seconds. It started the way it always started with Connor. Not with a punch, not with a shout, with a voice just loud enough to make sure the right person heard it. You know what's wrong with this town, Kyle? Connor leaned back in his booth, arms spread across the top of the seat. He wasn't looking at Kyle when he said it. He was looking at Mitchell. Used to be you'd walk in here and know everybody. Now you got all sorts of people just showing up, sitting wherever they want, acting like they own the place. Kyle Sutter chuckled. He was 26, buzz cut, thick neck. The kind of deputy who laughed at whatever the loudest voice in the room said. He glanced at Mitchell, then back at Connor. He knew exactly who Connor was talking about. Mitchell didn't look up. He turned the page of his newspaper, took a slow sip of coffee. The mug was warm against his palm. The bacon on his plate was still sizzling. He could hear every word Connor said. He chose to hear none of it. Brenda was behind the counter, wiping down the same spot she'd already wiped 3 times. Her jaw was tight. Her eyes kept moving between Connor and Mitchell like she was watching a fuse burn toward a stick of dynamite. Connor waited. He wanted a reaction, a flinch, a look, anything. He got nothing. So he got up. The booth creaked as he stood. His boots were loud on the tile floor. 3 steps. 4. 5. He stopped right next to Mitchell's stool, close enough that Mitchell could smell the cheap cologne and the cigarette he'd smoked in the parking lot. "Hey, I'm talking to you." Mitchell set his coffee down, slowly. He folded the newspaper and placed it on the counter. Then he looked up at Connor. "I heard you just fine." "Yeah? Then why are you ignoring me?" "Because there's nothing you've said worth responding to." The diner went quiet. Not the comfortable quiet of a lazy Saturday. The kind of quiet that happens when people realize something bad is about to unfold, right in front of their eggs and toast. Connor's neck turned red, started at the collar, and crept up to his ears. His jaw flexed. He put both hands flat on the counter, one on each side of Mitchell's plate, and leaned in. "You know who I am?" "I do." "You know who my father is?" "I do." "Then you know how things work around here. So when I talk, you listen. That's how it goes." Mitchell didn't lean back, didn't lean forward, just held Connor's stare, like a man who'd stared down things far worse than a 28-year-old bully in a diner. "Son, I've been coming here for 11 years. I'll be here next Saturday, too. Whatever you're looking for this morning, you won't find it at this counter." Connor's eye twitched. That was the thing about Mitchell. He didn't give you anything to grab onto. No anger, no fear. Just calm. And calm made Connor furious. He turned toward Brenda. Brenda, this man is making your customers uncomfortable. Brenda stopped wiping. She looked Connor dead in the face. Only person making anyone uncomfortable in here is you, Connor. Excuse me? You heard me. Mitchell's been a customer here longer than you've been shaving. He's not bothering anyone. Connor smiled. But it wasn't a real smile. It was the kind of smile that came right before a threat. You know, Brenda, I was talking to my dad the other day. He mentioned your health inspection is overdue. Said it'd be a shame if someone had to come out here and take a real close look at this kitchen. The words hung in the air like smoke. Every regular in that diner knew what he was really saying. This wasn't about health codes. This was about power. Who had it? Who didn't? Brenda's hand trembled. Not from fear, from rage. 22 years she'd built this place. Every table, every recipe, every early morning. And this kid was threatening to tear it apart because she wouldn't throw out a man for the color of his skin. She opened her mouth to respond, but Mitchell spoke first. That's enough. He said it quiet, firm, like a man who was used to giving orders that people followed. Leave her out of this. Your problem is with me. So let's keep it with me. Connor tilted his head. My problem? Old man, you are the problem. He snapped his fingers at Kyle without turning around. Kyle, come here. Kyle stood up from the booth, adjusted his belt, walked over slow, like he wanted everyone to see the badge and the gun. He positioned himself near the front door, not blocking it exactly, but close enough. The message was clear. Connor was off duty, but Kyle wasn't. An old woman in the corner booth pulled her purse closer to her body. A young couple near the window stopped talking. A mother turned her child's face away from the counter. Everyone could feel it. The gravity in that room had shifted. All of it was pulling toward the counter where Mitchell sat. Here's what's going to happen, Connor said. He poked Mitchell's chest with his index finger. You're going to get up. You're going to walk out that door. And you're not going to come back. Not today. Not next Saturday. Not ever. Mitchell looked down at the finger on his chest, then back up at Connor. No. One word. That was all he said, and it landed like a grenade. Connor's face twisted. The red on his neck climbed to his forehead. He grabbed Mitchell's jacket at the shoulder and yanked him off the stool. The stool spun and crashed into the one next to it. Mitchell's plate slid off the counter and shattered on the floor. Bacon, eggs, ceramic, all of it scattered across the tile. Mitchell caught himself on the edge of a table. Glasses rattled. A woman gasped. He didn't fall. 31 years in the army had taught his body to absorb impact and find balance before his brain even registered the hit. I said, move. Connor grabbed him by the collar with both hands now, twisted the fabric, pulled him toward the door. Mitchell's boots dragged across the tile. He didn't fight back, not because he couldn't, because he chose not to. There was a difference, and that difference was everything. The brass bell above the door jingled, a cheerful little sound that had no business being part of this moment. Connor shoved Mitchell through the doorway. Mitchell hit the sidewalk hard. His right knee cracked against the concrete. His palm scraped raw. The canvas jacket tore at the shoulder seam. Connor stood in the doorway, sunlight behind him, shadow on his face. Go find somewhere your kind belongs, dog. Then he turned back to the diner, grinning, clapped Kyle on the shoulder like they'd just won a game. Inside, 12 people sat, frozen, forks in the air, mouths open, eyes wide. Not one of them moved, Not one of them spoke. A woman near the window had her phone out. Her hands were shaking. The camera was recording. Outside, Mitchell Owens sat on the sidewalk of the town where he was born. His knee was bleeding through his khakis. His palms were raw and pink. The jacket his wife Denise had given him for their anniversary was torn at the shoulder. He didn't yell, didn't pound the ground, didn't call for help. He took a breath, then another. He pressed his hands flat on the concrete and pushed himself up. Slowly. The way a man gets up when he wants you to know he's choosing to rise, not because you told him to. Brenda came running out the front door, the bell jingling behind her. She had a damp towel in one hand and fury in her eyes. Mitch, are you okay? Let me see your hands. I'm fine, Brenda. You are not fine. That boy just in my restaurant. I swear to God. Brenda. Mitchell put his hand on her arm. Gentle, steady. I'm fine. She looked at him, tears in her eyes. Not from sadness, from the kind of anger that has nowhere to go. Mitchell brushed off his knees, straightened his torn jacket, and stood there on that sidewalk, bleeding, with the same posture he'd carried through 3 decades of service. Inside the diner, Connor Hadley sat down at the counter, right on Mitchell's stool. He picked up what was left of Mitchell's coffee and took a sip. "Brenda, how about some fresh bacon over here?" Mitchell walked to his truck. It was parked at the far end of the lot. A dark green Ford F-150, 10 years old, clean but not flashy. The kind of truck a man drives when he doesn't need anyone to notice him. He opened the driver's side door. His hands were still raw from the concrete. Tiny beads of blood sat on his palms like red dew. He reached into the glove compartment for a napkin and pressed it against the scrape on his right knee. He wasn't running. He wasn't hiding. He was removing himself from a situation the way a man with 31 years of military training knew how to do. De-escalate. Withdraw. Don't give them what they want. But Connor wasn't done. The diner door swung open. The brass bell jingled. Connor walked out with Kyle 2 steps behind him, sunglasses back on, thumbs hooked in his belt loops, walking slow, the way a man walks when he thinks the whole world is his sidewalk. Hey! Where you think you're going?" Mitchell didn't turn around. He folded the napkin and placed it in his pocket. "I'm leaving. That's what you wanted." "I didn't say you could leave. I said you could leave the diner. I didn't say anything about the parking lot." Mitchell turned around, looked at Connor, then at Kyle. Kyle's hand was resting on his belt, not on his weapon, but close enough to send a message. "What do you want, Connor?" "I want to know who you are. Show me some ID." "You're off duty. You have no authority to ask me for identification." Connor smiled, that same smile from the diner, the one that came before the threat. "I'm off duty. Kyle's not." He jerked his thumb toward the deputy. "Kyle, ask the man for his ID." Kyle stepped forward, cleared his throat, tried to make his voice sound official. "Sir, I'm going to need to see some identification." Mitchell looked at Kyle for a long moment. He could have argued. He knew his rights better than either of these men ever would. But he also knew what happened to black men who argued with badges in small-town parking lots. He reached into his back pocket. Slow, deliberate, making sure both hands were visible at all times. He pulled out his wallet and handed over his Virginia driver's license. Kyle took it, walked back to his cruiser, ran it through the system. Mitchell stood by his truck with his arms at his sides. The morning sun was getting warmer now. A bead of sweat rolled down the side of his neck. 2 minutes later, Kyle walked back. "He's clean, no warrants, no record, nothing." Connor's jaw flexed. He didn't like clean. Clean meant he had nothing to hold on to. Clean meant this old man was exactly what he appeared to be, a law-abiding citizen who'd been minding his own business. But Connor Hadley didn't operate on facts. He operated on feelings. and his feeling right now was that this man had embarrassed him by not being afraid.
Something doesn't feel right. Connor started walking around Mitchell's truck. Slow circle, running his hand along the side panel like he was inspecting livestock. You know, Kyle, I think I smell something. Smell what? Marijuana. Yeah, definitely. Coming from this vehicle. Mitchell's voice was steady. There is no marijuana in this truck. There has never been marijuana in this truck. Well, I guess we'll find out. Kyle, open it up.
Kyle hesitated, just for a second. A flicker of something, maybe conscience, maybe just nerves, crossed his face. Then it was gone. He opened the passenger side door of Mitchell's truck without consent, without a warrant, without probable cause. Mitchell spoke clearly, loud enough for anyone in earshot. I do not consent to this search. I am stating for the record that I do not consent.
Noted, Connor said. He wasn't even looking at Mitchell. He was already rummaging through the glove compartment. Registration papers, a pack of tissues, a small flashlight. He tossed each item onto the passenger seat like he was going through a junk drawer. Kyle searched the back seat. Floor mats, an old blanket, a pair of reading glasses in a case. Nothing. Then Connor found it. Under the back seat, a locked metal case. Dark brown, about the size of a shoebox. Heavy. Well, well. What do we have here? Mitchell's jaw tightened. For the first time that morning, something shifted in his eyes. Not fear. Something deeper. Something protective. That is my personal property. It is locked, and you have no right to open it. Kyle, get me something to pry this open. Connor, I don't think we should... Did I stutter? Open it. Kyle pulled a flathead screwdriver from his cruiser's toolkit. He handed it to Connor. Connor jammed it into the latch and twisted. The cheap lock gave way with a snap. He flipped the case open. Inside, laid out on a bed of dark velvet, were 4 items. A faded military service photograph. A young black man in dress uniform, standing tall, eyes forward. A carefully folded American flag in a triangular frame. A leather-bound journal with worn edges, and a small velvet box. Connor picked up the velvet box and opened it. Inside sat a bronze star medal. The ribbon was slightly faded. The medal still caught the light. He held it up between 2 fingers like it was a toy from a cereal box. The hell is this? What, you buy this at a pawn shop? Pick it up at a yard sale? Mitchell said nothing, but his hands, those steady, disciplined hands, closed into fists at his sides. Connor tossed the medal. Just tossed it. It hit the asphalt, bounced once, and rolled under the truck. Junk. He dropped the case on the ground. The photograph slid out onto the pavement. The journal's pages fluttered in the morning breeze. Kyle, I'm not finding anything illegal, but this man clearly had an attitude problem back in the diner. I think we need to hold him here until we figure out what's going on. Kyle pulled out his handcuffs, looked at Mitchell. Sir, I'm going to need you to sit down on the curb. On what charge? Obstruction. Obstruction of what? No answer. Because there was no answer. There was no crime. There was no charge. There was nothing except 2 men with a badge and a last name, and 1 man with brown skin who'd refused to be afraid. Mitchell sat down on the curb. A 63-year-old man, a veteran, sitting on a concrete curb in a diner parking lot in his own hometown. His knees aching, his palms still raw. His bronze star somewhere under his truck in the dirt. Connor stood over him, pulled out his phone, threw his arm around Kyle's shoulder, held the phone out at arm's length. Click! A selfie. The two of them grinning. Mitchell on the curb behind them like a prop. Connor looked at the photo and laughed. Classic. He didn't notice the woman inside the diner, the one by the window, the one whose hands had stopped shaking. Her phone was pressed flat against the glass. The red recording dot was still blinking. And he didn't notice Brenda in the back hallway, phone pressed to her ear, whispering fast. Ray, it's Brenda. You need to come now. They've got Mitch in the parking lot. It's bad. It's real bad.
Man, are you serious right now? Imagine your grandfather, the man who served his whole life, sitting on a curb while some punk takes a selfie over him. His medal in the dirt. And nobody does a thing. Would you just sit there? Because what's coming next, Connor has no idea. 20 minutes passed. Mitchell sat on that curb like a man who'd waited in worse places. Deserts, foxholes, hospital corridors where the news was never good. 20 minutes was nothing to a man like him. Brenda brought him a cup of coffee, walked right past Connor and Kyle without looking at either one of them, set the mug on the curb next to Mitchell, and squeezed his shoulder. Hang on, Mitch. I'm all right, Brenda. I've sat in worse spots than this. She went back inside. The bell jingled behind her. Connor was inside now, sitting at the counter, eating. Not his food, Mitchell's food. Brenda had made a fresh plate of bacon and eggs for Mitchell right before everything went sideways. Connor pulled it across the counter and dug in like he'd ordered it himself. Brenda, these eggs are cold. You want to heat these up for me? Brenda didn't answer. She stood at the register with her arms crossed and her eyes on the parking lot. Connor talked with his mouth full, loud, bragging to Kyle about how his dad would handle everything. Relax. Even if the old man complains, my dad'll bury it. He always does. Remember that thing last summer? Gone, like it never happened. Kyle nodded, but he wasn't laughing anymore. Something about the way Mitchell had sat down on that curb, calm, quiet, like he was waiting for something specific, made Kyle's stomach feel wrong. Connor pulled out his phone and called his father.
Hey, Dad. Yeah, some guy at Brenda's causing trouble. Nothing serious. I handled it. Just wanted to give you a heads up in case someone calls. He hung up, took another bite of bacon, wiped his mouth with the back of his hand. Then Kyle looked out the window. Connor! What? Connor, look! A black SUV pulled into the parking lot. Government plates, tinted windows. It stopped 15 feet from where Mitchell was sitting. Then a second one. Then a third. The engines idled, low and heavy. The kind of sound that vibrates in your chest before you even understand what you're looking at. Connor stood up. Slowly. The fork was still in his hand. The door of the lead vehicle opened. A man stepped out. He was tall, mid-60s, African-American, and he was wearing the full dress uniform of the United States Army. Dark blue jacket, gold buttons, ribbons covering the left side of his chest like a wall of color. And on each shoulder, 4 stars.
4 silver stars on each shoulder. General Raymond Carter, Commanding General, United States Army Forces Command. 2 aides stepped out behind him. Then a military attorney in uniform. Then a driver who stayed by the vehicle with his hands folded. The general didn't look at the diner, didn't look at Connor through the window, didn't look at any of the faces now pressing against the glass. He walked straight to Mitchell.
Mitchell saw him coming.
He set the coffee mug down on the curb, pressed his raw palms against his knees, and pushed himself to his feet. Slow. Steady. The same way he'd gotten up from the sidewalk an hour ago, choosing to rise. General Carter stopped 3 feet in front of him. The parking lot was dead silent. No birds, no traffic. Even the wind seemed to hold its breath. And then General Raymond Carter, a 4-star general of the United States Army, one of the highest-ranking military officers in the country, raised his right hand to his brow. He saluted Mitchell Owens first. Let me explain something. In the United States military, a lower-ranking person always salutes a higher-ranking officer first. Always. That's the rule. A sergeant salutes a captain. A colonel salutes a general. That's how it works. But there is one exception. The Medal of Honor. Any service member, regardless of rank, regardless of stars, salutes a Medal of Honor recipient first. A 4-star general. A chairman of the Joint Chiefs. Even the President of the United States will initiate the salute. Mitchell Owens was a retired sergeant major. 31 years of service, 3 combat deployments, and a Medal of Honor. The highest military decoration the United States of America can bestow upon a human being. That medal wasn't in his case. That one was in a display at the Pentagon. The bronze star that Connor threw in the dirt was just one of many. Mitchell straightened his torn jacket, lifted his chin, and returned the salute. Clean, sharp, perfect. Like the 31 years had never left his bones. Carter dropped the salute, stepped forward, took Mitchell's hand in both of his. Sergeant Major Owens, I got the call. I was at Fort Belvoir, came as fast as I could. Appreciate you coming, Ray. Didn't want to make it a thing. It was already a thing, Mitch. Inside the diner, Connor Hadley stood at the window. The fork had fallen from his hand somewhere in the last 60 seconds. His face was white. Not red anymore. White. The kind of white that happens when every drop of blood in your body decides to leave your head all at once.
Kyle was behind him. He'd taken off his sunglasses. His hand was no longer near his belt. It was hanging at his side, limp, like it didn't belong to him anymore. The woman with the phone moved to the doorway, still recording, the red dot still blinking. 12 people who hadn't said a word now watched through the glass as a 4-star general held the hand of the man they'd let get dragged across the floor. General Carter turned around.
He looked at the diner, then at the parking lot, then at Kyle Sutter, who was standing near the entrance, like a man who'd forgotten how legs worked. You, deputy, come here. Kyle walked over, or tried to. His boots scraped the asphalt like they weighed 50 pounds each. He stopped 5 feet from the general. Couldn't look him in the eye. Are you aware that you just conducted an illegal search of this man's vehicle? No warrant, no probable cause, no consent.
Kyle opened his mouth. Nothing came out. Are you aware that you detained this man without charge? A man who has committed no crime. A man who has served this country for 31 years. A man who has received the Medal of Honor from the President of the United States. Kyle's bottom lip trembled. He looked like a kid who'd been caught stealing and just realized his parents were standing right behind him. Sir, Connor said... I didn't ask what Connor said. I asked what you did.
Carter's military attorney was already on the phone. 3 calls in rapid succession. The county sheriff's department, the state attorney general's office, and a contact at the Pentagon's public affairs division. He spoke low and fast, writing in a small notebook between calls. Then Carter looked at the diner door. Where is he? The one who started this. Connor Hadley stepped outside. He didn't strut this time.
didn't swing his arms, didn't hook his thumbs in his belt loops. He walked through that door like a man walking into a courtroom where the verdict was already in. Sir, Listen, this was a misunderstanding. I didn't know. Carter cut him off. Not with a shout, with a voice so calm it was worse than any scream. You didn't know what? You didn't know he was a veteran? You didn't know he had a Medal of Honor? Tell me something, son. If he didn't have that medal, if he was just a 63-year-old black man eating breakfast, would what you did have been acceptable then?
Connor's mouth opened, closed, opened again. Nothing. That's what I thought. Brenda stepped into the doorway, arms crossed, eyes red but steady.
General, I've got the security camera footage. Every second. From the moment he walked in to the moment you pulled up. Audio, too. The woman with the phone raised it from behind Brenda's shoulder. I got it, too. All of it. Carter nodded. Good. Hold on to it. You're going to need it. 15 minutes later, a county sheriff's cruiser pulled into the lot. Not Ridgemont PD. County. This was outside Gerald Hadley's hands now. 2 deputies stepped out. They walked straight to Connor.
Connor Hadley, you're under arrest. Assault in the 4th degree. Unlawful detention. Theft of personal property. Deprivation of civil rights under color of law. Connor's face crumbled. Theft? What theft? The medal you threw on the ground, sir. That's federal property and a national honor. You damaged and discarded it intentionally. They turned him around, cuffed his wrists behind his back. The click of the handcuffs echoed off the brick storefronts of Main Street. Kyle Sutter was placed on immediate administrative leave on the spot. His badge was taken. His service weapon was taken. His body camera had not been activated during the entire incident. Of course it hadn't. But it didn't matter. Brenda's camera caught everything. The bystander's phone caught everything. Every word, every shove, every laugh. 20 minutes later, Connor sat in the back of a county cruiser. He pulled out his phone with cuffed hands and called his father. Dad, you need to come get me. They're arresting me. This is insane. Call someone. Gerald Hadley made calls. He called the county sheriff. Voicemail. He called the district attorney. Voicemail. He called Judge Whitmore, who owed him a favor from 6 years back. Voicemail. Nobody picked up. Not one person. The political math had changed in real time. Nobody wanted their name anywhere near this story.
Back in the parking lot, Mitchell Owens knelt beside his truck. He reached under the chassis and picked up his bronze star, brushed the dirt off with his thumb, held it in his palm for a moment, then placed it back in the velvet box, back in the case, and closed the lid. He shook Carter's hand one more time, thanked Brenda, got in his truck, and drove home. No speech, no celebration, no fist in the air, just a man driving home on a Saturday morning, the way he was supposed to an hour ago. The video hit the internet before Connor's mugshot was even taken. The woman from the diner, her name was Lisa Moore, 34, mother of 2, posted the footage on every platform she had. No filter, no edit, no caption, except 5 words. This happened in Ridgemont today. By Saturday night, it had 400,000 views. By Sunday morning, 1.2 million. By Monday afternoon, 4.2 million and climbing. The title that spread fastest across every share, every repost, every news segment: Police Chief's son assaults Medal of Honor veteran at diner.
It played on CNN Monday evening. MSNBC picked it up Tuesday morning. Fox ran it Tuesday night. For once, every network agreed on the same thing. The footage was undeniable. There was no angle that made Connor look like anything other than exactly what he was.
The comment sections exploded. Thousands of them. Veterans who'd served alongside men like Mitchell. Parents who imagined their fathers sitting on that curb. Strangers who'd never been to Ridgemont and never would, but felt the concrete under Mitchell's knees like it was their own.
Veterans organizations issued formal statements within 48 hours. The Veterans of Foreign Wars, the American Legion, the Association of the United States Army. Every statement said some version of the same thing. This man bled for his country, and his country let him get dragged across a diner floor.
The NAACP called for a full investigation, not just of Connor, of the entire Ridgemont Police Department. Because everyone watching that video had the same question. If Connor felt comfortable doing this in public, on camera, in broad daylight, what had he done when nobody was watching? The state attorney general answered that question. Her name was Catherine Wells. She launched a formal investigation the Wednesday after the incident. Her office pulled every complaint filed against Connor Hadley in the past 5 years. There were 11.
11 complaints. 3 of them involved physical confrontation. All 3 victims were black. All 3 complaints had been filed with the Ridgemont Police Department, and all 3 had disappeared. No investigation, no follow-up, no paper trail. They simply stopped existing the moment they landed on Chief Gerald Hadley's desk. One complaint was from a 19-year-old college student who'd been pulled over for a broken taillight. Connor had made him lie face down on the road for 20 minutes. In January, on wet asphalt. The kid filed a report. Nothing happened. Another was from a 46-year-old school teacher. Connor had shown up at her door at 11 p.m. over a noise complaint from a neighbor. There was no noise. Her house was silent. He searched her living room without permission. She filed a report. Nothing happened.
The third was from a 71-year-old church deacon.
Connor had accused him of shoplifting at a gas station. The store camera showed the man had paid for everything. Connor detained him for 45 minutes in the parking lot anyway. He filed a report. Nothing happened. 3 people, 3 years, 3 reports. All buried. All black.
The investigation expanded. Internal Affairs dove into Chief Gerald Hadley's department. What they found was a system built on silence. Racial profiling statistics that had never been reported to the state. Use of force incidents that were logged as resolved with no documentation. A department budget with unexplained expenses routed through a personal account.
14 years of leadership. 14 years of looking the other way.
14 years of protecting his son and calling it police work. The trial began 11 weeks after the diner incident. Ridgemont County Courthouse. The courtroom was standing room only. News cameras outside. Reporters from 6 states. A sketch artist in the front row because cameras weren't allowed inside. The prosecution played the diner footage first. 4 minutes and 38 seconds. No narration, no commentary, just the raw video. Connor grabbing Mitchell's collar, the coffee mug shattering, Mitchell's knees hitting the sidewalk. Connor laughing, the selfie, the bronze star bouncing off the asphalt. The jury watched in silence. One woman in the back row pressed her hand over her mouth. A man in the front row closed his eyes during the selfie. Mitchell Owens took the stand. He wore a dark suit, no medals. He spoke the way he always spoke, quiet, steady, precise. He described the morning,
the coffee, the newspaper. The first words Connor said. Every detail, in order, without emotion. When the prosecutor asked how he felt when Connor threw his bronze star on the ground, Mitchell paused for 3 seconds. That medal was given to me by a commanding officer who didn't make it home. I carried it for him, not for me.
The courtroom was silent for a long time after that. Connor's defense attorney argued misunderstanding, poor judgment, a young man who made a mistake. He used the word regret 14 times in his closing statement. The jury deliberated for 2 hours and 40 minutes.
Guilty on all counts. Assault, unlawful detention, deprivation of civil rights under color of law. The judge, Patricia Nolan, 22 years on the bench, sentenced Connor Hadley to 3 years in federal prison. No parole for the first 18 months. Connor stood motionless when the sentence was read. His mother sobbed in the gallery. His father wasn't there. Gerald Hadley had been advised by his own attorney not to appear.
Kyle Sutter's case was handled separately. He took a plea deal. 18 months in a minimum security facility. Permanent revocation of his law enforcement certification. He would never carry a badge again. The civil suit came next. Terrence Graves, civil rights attorney out of Richmond, 20 years of practice, known for never losing a case he believed in, represented Mitchell. The suit named Connor Hadley, Kyle Sutter, the Ridgemont Police Department, and the county. The jury awarded Mitchell Owens $2.8 million in damages. And then came Gerald Hadley's turn. The state attorney general's investigation had built a case that stretched back nearly a decade. Obstruction of justice, official misconduct, suppression of evidence, misuse of public funds. Gerald Hadley resigned on a Thursday morning. He was indicted the following Tuesday.
His 14-year career ended not with a press conference, not with a farewell speech, with a mugshot taken in the same booking room where his sons had been taken 11 weeks earlier. The empty pedestal on Main Street, the one where the Confederate statue used to stand. The city council voted unanimously to replace it with a monument to community service. They asked Mitchell to speak at the dedication. He said 4 sentences. The crowd gave him a standing ovation.
Mitchell and Denise still go to Brenda's every Saturday. Same time, same stool, same coffee. Black, no sugar, ceramic mug with a chip on the handle. Brenda still pours it before he sits down. They still say the same thing every week. Morning, Mitch. Morning, Brenda. The jacket got fixed. Denise took it to a tailor on Route 9 the Monday after everything happened. The woman didn't charge her. Said she'd seen the video. Said it was the least she could do.
Mitchell wears it every Saturday. Same hook by the door. Third one from the left. The diner looks a little different now. Brenda added a patio out back. 6 tables with red umbrellas, string lights that glow warm on summer evenings. Business doubled after the story broke. People drive in from 3 counties away just to eat at the place they saw on the news. There's a framed photograph hanging on the wall next to the register. Mitchell and General Carter shaking hands in the parking lot. Brenda took it herself. She had it printed on thick matte paper and put it in a dark wooden frame. Nobody asks about it. Everybody knows. And next to the front door, just below the brass bell, there's a small bronze plaque. 4 words. Everyone belongs here. General Carter visits once a year, always in the fall. He drives down from D.C. in his personal car. No convoy, no aides, no stars on his shoulders. Just an old friend visiting another old friend. They sit in the same booth by the window. Brenda brings them the same thing.
2 plates of bacon, eggs, and biscuits. Coffee. No menus needed.
They don't talk about that Saturday. They talk about Carter's granddaughter, who just started college. They talk about Mitchell's vegetable garden and the tomatoes that won't cooperate. They argue about fishing spots. Carter thinks the James River is better. Mitchell swears by the Shenandoah. They never agree. They never stop arguing about it. When Carter leaves, they shake hands in the parking lot. Same spot where the salute happened. Neither of them mentions it. They don't have to. Connor Hadley is in a federal correctional facility in Beckley, West Virginia. He works in the laundry unit. He doesn't get visitors. His commissary account receives no deposits. His mother stopped coming after the 3rd month. She said the drive was too long. Everybody knew that wasn't the real reason. Kyle Sutter moved to North Carolina after his release, changed his last name, works at an auto parts warehouse. He has never applied for another law enforcement position. He never will. Gerald Hadley awaits trial. His attorneys have requested 3 delays. The state attorney general has denied every one. The case is expected to go before a jury this fall. 14 years of buried complaints. 14 years of silence. All of it laid out on paper, waiting for 12 people to read. The Ridgemont Police Department operates under a federal consent decree now. Mandatory bias training, civilian oversight board, body cameras that cannot be turned off during any interaction with the public. Every complaint gets logged, tracked, and reviewed by an independent monitor. It's not perfect. No system is. But it's not what it was. Lisa Moore, the woman who filmed the video, was offered money by 3 media companies for exclusive rights. She turned all of them down. She said the video didn't belong to her. It belonged to everybody who'd ever been treated like Mitchell and didn't have a general who picked up the phone. And that's the thing. Mitchell's power was never the medal, never the phone call, never the general with 3 black SUVs. It was that he never broke. He sat on that curb with his palms bleeding and his dignity completely intact. You can't take something from a man who refuses to let go of it.
Yo, this story is fiction. But imagine it's your dad on that curb. His medal in the dirt. 12 people just watching. What would you do? Stand up or look at your plate? Tell me in the comments. If this one hit you, like, share, subscribe.